Welcome to Invisible Iceberg. On today's show, we're going back to the age of the dinosaur to explore how a comet or asteroid changed everything. Plus, in our segment What If, we look at how life on our planet would be different if this event never happened. And we'll reveal some interesting facts about asteroids. Are we at risk of another one of that size hitting Earth? It all starts now on Invisible Iceberg. A massive comet speeds toward Earth, slamming into Mexico with such force it leaves a crater 90 miles wide in the Yucatan Peninsula. The impact sends thick, vaporized rock and debris high into the air, setting off widespread fires, earthquakes, and a tsunami. There's barely any light. Darkness ensues. 75% of the Earth's planet and animal life perish, including the dinosaurs that roam the planet. This scenario sounds like a blockbuster sci-fi movie, but it's just one of the true and fascinating stories in the book Invisible Iceberg, When Climate and Weather Shaped History. Joining us right now is AccuWeather founder and executive chairman and author of the book Invisible Iceberg, When Climate and Weather Shaped History, Dr. Joel Myers. Thanks for talking to us today, Dr. Joel.
My pleasure.
We're going to go back to 66 million years ago. What was life on Earth like during that time?
Before 66 million years, the Earth was teeming with dinosaurs of all sorts. Huge dinosaurs, some of them 10 times larger than any land animal today, 125 feet long, weighing 70 tons. One life form weighing 70 tons. And but all types of dinosaurs, some that flew, some that were land, some ate just plants, some ate other animals. They were teeming. Some of them were getting pretty smart through evolution.
And when we talk about climate change, we usually talk about longer periods of how the climate changes over longer periods.
How it evolves and changes.
How it evolved, and it usually is a long period of time.
Well, some of them, it's interesting. Some were dramatic, almost at a second change, and others, you're right, evolved over hundreds or even thousands or tens of thousands of years.
But in this case,
it changed.
The climate changed.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
It was either a meteorite or a comet hit the Earth at tremendous speeds, hundreds, thousands of miles a second, and coming in at an angle of 60 degrees to the horizon and struck in the Gulf of Mexico near the Yucatan Peninsula, and it changed everything.
And it was the angle and the location that actually had, let's say, maximum impact across the world. Explain.
Well, it hit an area that was high on hydrocarbons, so the tremendous friction in the impact set it all aflame. Now, less than 15% of the world has this kind of surface, but in this case, it was a maximum damage because it set things aflame, and the angle was maximum too for if it had come in like this, it would have just dug a deeper hole, but wouldn't have sent as much into the atmosphere. But since it came in at this angle, it just threw everything into the atmosphere.
According to your book, it said a heat pulse with the force of 100 million atomic bombs traveled 900 miles in all directions, caused, I mean, that is just...
Think of it,
it's even hard to compromise. Think of that.
A tenth of a billion atomic bombs. Think of that force. So it was devastating to most life on the planet, particularly animal life. Almost all the animals were wiped out. You started with a dinosaur, the maximum weighing 70 tons, and the biggest animal left after everything subsided on the planet was about 55 pounds.
So pretty much everything wiped out across the Earth, but yet there was some life that survived.
Some life survived, and some more plant life than animal life, but the basics of life continued on the planet. Obviously, we had the same, more or less, atmosphere. The sun is still there to bring warmth and energy to the Earth, And so gradually the planet returned to its previous condition over thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years. But there were different life forms on the planet. The dinosaurs had been wiped out, and so mammals started to evolve. What it shows is the Earth is a laboratory for life. Life adjusts and develops through survival of the fittest for whatever climate conditions exist at that time. And so we had a new environment, and so new species evolved and developed.
With all of the events that happened in the Earth's history, and we go over many of them in the book here, Invisible Iceberg, When Climate and Weather Shaped History, I don't think there was anything as extreme as this event. Am I correct in that statement?
We don't know of any other. Certainly within the last 66 million years, there might have been things prior in the history we just have no record of.
It's a fascinating story, Dr. Joe. Thanks for telling us. Stick around, because coming up, we'll be talking about our what if statement in just a few minutes. Here with more insight on this topic is Jack Hersch. He is a paleontologist and dinosaur expert. Jack, thanks so much for joining us here today.
You're very welcome.
When dinosaurs were here, what was life on Earth 66 million years ago?
You know, it was the world was dominated by dinosaurs. Tyrannosaurus Rex and Triceratops, and the world was pretty much ice-free. There's probably was a bit of an ice cap, maybe on the north and south poles, but for the most part, it was relatively warm, not extremely hot or anything like that, but pretty temperate weather. I mean, we had crocodiles living in what is now Alberta, Canada.
What was the Earth like after the strike then, and how did this affect plant and marine life?
Well, it wiped out a lot of marine life. All of our marine reptiles, all of the dinosaurs except their descendants, the birds, which probably were mostly wiped out themselves, but enough of them lasted, lived through it that we have birds today. The mammals seem to have survived, at least some of them. It was after the extinction was over, there probably wasn't much. It took a long time for life to come back. The animals that survived were pretty much just lucky.
If the dinosaurs had not been killed off, mammals would have had trouble surviving.
Well, they weren't really having trouble surviving. It was just they were having trouble, adapting to ecosystems that were, overruled by dinosaurs at the time. So, it would have been it was competition, and the dinosaurs were the largest animals of the day, and there were small ones as well. I mean, it was a mammals' advantage was they were nocturnal, and so they lived their lives at night, basically. That's why a lot of our mammals today are colorblind. It's because they evolved from nocturnal animals.
Could science one day bring back the dinosaurs?
Well, there's pretty controversial.
Yeah.
I've been working on a project to bring back some dinosaur characteristics. In other words, kind of retro-engineer some characters back into a bird. And we've been relatively successful at that. But obviously, we're not going to, hatch dinosaurs anytime soon. And as I've stated more recently, I've said that, if we did, we probably need an island.
Yeah, I was going to say, what advantage would there be to even bringing them back, even a species or two? Why would we want to do that? Well,
I would like to have a pet dinosaur. I don't, I mean, we have we've modified wolves and made, chihuahuas from wolves. So I don't see any reason why can't modify a chicken and make some kind of a dinosaur-like creature. I mean, that seems like it'd be a kind of a fun pet.
All right. Jack Horner, paleontologist and dinosaur expert, thanks so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome.
Coming up, we reveal some interesting facts about asteroids. Are we at risk of another one of that size hitting Earth? But next, in our What If segment, we look at how life on our planet would be different if this event never happened. Welcome back to Invisible Iceberg. I'm Bernie Rayno. It's time for our What If segment, and we're back with AccuWeather founder and executive chairman and author of the book Invisible Iceberg, When Climate and Weather Shaped History, Dr. Joel Myers. It was the perfect storm, as you had mentioned before, the comet and the asteroid, where it struck and how it struck. Let's talk about how things would have been different if just one of those aspects, the location or even the angle, would have been different.
Well, it certainly was the perfect storm. You just said the asteroid or comet, whichever, hit the Earth at the angle that maximized the friction and the heat. It hit an area that was very high in hydrocarbons, so it set off, it burned. Tremendous fire raged and spread around most of the Earth. It hit an area that was partly water, and so created huge tidal waves, perhaps up as high as 1,000 feet, that spread out across the oceans. It was devastating. It wiped out more than 75% of life on the planet. But the Earth is a laboratory for life. And so life sprung back, but in different forms after this disaster passed and after all the dust and debris settled out of the atmosphere. Different types of life, different types of plant life. Although some survived from more plant than animal. Virtually all the animals, but not all, were wiped out. And so life sprung back in different forms after that.
And then life comes back, the Earth starts to recover. But the history of our planet says there's always other events that can change the course of history. And there was something else that happened many, many years forward. There was a huge eruption of a volcano, the Toba volcano, which is on the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. And that, too, then kind of changed the course of
humanity.
Yeah. So
let's think of what happened. So when the dinosaurs were wiped out, opened up the era for mammals to develop. And, of course, the mammals showed up in many different forms and evolved over time. And humans are mammals. And so it led to the development of Neanderthal and humans many, many millions of years later, because humans have been on the planet for well under 1 million years, perhaps only a couple 100,000 years. So they were appearing and starting to develop, 66 million, and then 200,000 years ago, just a fraction of 1 million, humans appeared, and then 72,000 years ago, which really in the history is not that long ago. It's 36 times back from when Jesus walked the earth, to put it in context. And humans were starting to develop. And then we had the Toba volcanic eruption, which put tremendous debris into the atmosphere, caused widespread cooling. Temperature of the earth may have dropped 30 degrees Fahrenheit. And this was a threat to all types of plant life and food and humans as well. And so it's possible a number of humans on the planet, because of all this, that resulted from lack of food and sickness and disease and much colder temperatures, could have been down to a few thousand people. But again, humans somehow bounced back. But that was responsible for the very narrow genomic variation among humans. Humans all over the world. People don't realize this. They fight over all these little differences. But there's less variation in the DNA of humans all over the world than there is of almost any other species. There's more variety of other species than it is of humans. So, but we fight over look and color of skin and religion and so on, but yet humans are almost, in DNA terms, almost all the same. It's fascinating. But they survived that period 72,000 years ago, flourished, and control the world like no species ever has in the history of the planet that we know of.
So you have volcanic eruptions, and you also have the comet or asteroid hitting. They're different processes, but in a sense, they're somewhat similar in their impacts.
That's correct.
Spreading the debris into the atmosphere and how it changes the climate, right?
Well, right. So volcanoes throw dust and gases into the atmosphere. So some volcanic eruptions can cause tremendous cooling. If the dust and debris blocks out the sun, causes cooling that lasts for several years, sometimes could be 10 or 20. If there's a series of volcanic eruptions, you can bring on an ice age. But if the gases are prevalent and not the dust, you'll actually have global warming because they have greenhouse effects, and you can have significant warming. So different volcanic eruptions have different effects, and there's always a threat of a volcanic eruption causing a significant disruption. Even today, they have impact on air flight. Airplanes grounded and so on. If there was a lot, it's conceivable for a period of time, a lot of the flights worldwide could be impacted. There's always that threat. And of course, a huge volcanic eruption, we haven't experienced. We've seen Mount St. Helens. We saw Krakatoa, which caused the year without a summer a couple hundred years ago. But if Yellowstone were to blow...
That's the one, isn't it?
That's has the most potential globally. And it seems to blow in one way or another every 600,000 years on average. But if that were to blow, it will change the climate dramatically and could be a threat to humanity.
I want to read this passage because I think it's such a powerful statement. Climate colors every aspect of the world's various cultures, from the clothes we wear, to the foods we eat, to the holidays we celebrate, to the wars we fight, and the gods we worship. Every great empire in history has risen or fallen in part because of changes in climate. It's a powerful statement.
True, though.
True all around. Volcanic eruptions and comets and asteroids, they just show you how quickly things can change. Thanks for telling us the story, Dr. Joel.
My pleasure, as always.
Right. After the break, we'll reveal some interesting facts about asteroids. Welcome back to Invisible Iceberg. I'm Bernie Rayno. While an asteroid ended the dinosaur age, asteroids are still around. And here's some interesting facts you might not know about them. First, what are asteroids? They are large chunks of rock and metal left over since the beginning of our solar system, about 4.6 billion years ago. Now, most asteroids orbit the sun in an area in space between Mars and Jupiter called the asteroid belt. Second, what do asteroids look like? Asteroids are sometimes called minor planets, but they are not round like planets. They have jagged and irregular shapes and often look like huge potatoes. They have pits and craters and rotate as they travel through space. According to NASA, the smallest asteroids are about 33 feet across. The biggest is 10 times larger. Vesta is 329 miles in diameter. Finally, could another asteroid hit the Earth? Bennu is the asteroid closest to Earth. NASA scientists calculate Bennu will make a close approach to Earth in 2182, more than 150 years from now. But even then, there's only a slight chance, 1 in 2,700, that the asteroid will strike our planet. In 2023, NASA's OSIRIS-REx spacecraft returned with the sample of Bennu. Today, NASA scientists are analyzing that space rock for clues about our solar system and the possible origin of life here on Earth. I want to thank AccuWeather founder and executive chairman and author of the book Invisible Iceberg, When Climate and Weather Shaped History, Dr. Joel Myers, for joining us today. For more information and get your copy of the book Invisible Iceberg, go to invisibleiceberg.com. If you have any questions or comments, send us an email at questions@accuweather.com. We look forward to seeing you next time.